Pat Rafter
Legend.
is so interested in you.
Yeah.
You are just so drawn to him.
Yeah.
You know, I talk about people being interested and interesting. Interesting's great. Interested is so much more important.
Yep.
So if you can be both, great.
Yeah.
But being interested just means ask questions.
And so much more
Listen to the
powerful.
answers. And then when you see them next time, it's like follow up. You know,
Yeah.
How is their kid that was in hospital? You know, how is their golf game that they've just been obsessed by and taken up threes? Like that conversation keeps rolling.
No one's ever lucky. I think the only luck you get in life is where you're born, and then you make the rest.
Stick around. It's going to be a good ride. What happened on the weekend, Dan?
The wife come to me and she's got a real estate agent going through the house today.
Oh,
A bit nervous.
bit of activity down there on
Yeah, on the peninsula.
Is it finished?
It's finished. So
Is it finished?
I'm a bit nervous.
What
what's
if we
going to happen?
What if we went through it with a list? Would,
defects,
would it
yeah.
be finished?
All the transitions.
Wouldn't be finished.
Define finished.
I don't think the master builders can define finished.
So what's the game? So you're gonna flip it?
We don't know.
Guess 4 years work?
Oh, there'll be a number. There'll be a
It was
number.
a 14-month build, but had the property for a while. So I have to wait and see what the number comes back as. But
Have you got a number in
I
mind?
don't
Have you
want
got
to
a
sell.
number?
It's a
You
good
got a
build.
number?
It's a good build.
yeah, I don't want to sell, but she's sort of leaning towards selling.
We know who runs the show, so it looks like it's going up for sale.
Looking for a new house at some point.
Potentially.
Another project, mate.
Potentially. Well,
Another one.
that'll happen anyway.
You'd be
regardless.
mad not to the way you do homes.
Well, yeah, there'll be another project regardless, I think, but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Awesome.
Depends how big it is, I
All
suppose.
right, we'll stop talking about how big Dan's bank account is.
Nah, settle down, boys. Talk. Coming from you blokes.
Hey, over here. Welcome back to Australia's #1 podcast.
Already?
Whoa, hang on a minute. Where did you get that from? Where did you pull that from?
#1.
That's legit.
Cool
That's
your
legit.
jets.
Haven't you seen how viral we're going? Keep up. We are the little fish and we speak to the big fish about town each and every week. We talk property, development, construction, mindset and business also, bringing you as much value as we can. Please, guys, thanks for listening and viewing, however you're consuming us. Make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, comment, interact. We love it all, guys. We really appreciate it.
Bring it.
Bring it. The algorithm loves it, Benny tells me. Does
True.
it? Okay.
It does.
All right. Cool. I'll keep saying it then. This guy grew up on a sheep farm in South Australia, riding to school with his brother on horseback, to interviewing and rubbing shoulders with the likes of Kobe Bryant, Wayne Gretzky, and countless others. He hosts the biggest sporting events on the globe and arguably sits at the very pinnacle of Australia's sports broadcasting. Right at the top, boys. Rapt to have him on.
True that.
Hamish McLachlan.
Yeah.
#1 podcast. Where'd you pull that
Well,
from?
how else did we get this guy?
He's not going to come on if we tell him number 2.
Thank you. I told him #1 I had to go with it.
He's a busy man.
100%, very busy.
Is it #1 podcast for the week, given it's 10 on a Monday morning? Is like the first?
Spot on.
We'll
That's
take that.
We can go with that.
We're taking it.
I like it.
We can go with that. How are you, Hamish?
Really good. Good time of the year. Footy's around the corner. Olympics is on. Sitting with you guys. So kids are back at school, largely without masks. So
Yeah,
it's good.
beautiful. So we like to, because guys like yourself, Hamish, you know, you've been on our screens for a long time. You know, I feel like I've been watching you on our screens forever, you know, but it hasn't been forever. You started somewhere and you went on a journey and you got to where you are today. So it's important that for our listeners that we remind them that people do go on a journey and you can get somewhere if you put in. So you're there on the farm in South Australia. I heard that you were horseback to school. Is that for real?
Yeah, it's true. So I'm one of 4 brothers. Gillen, you would have heard of, Hamish, Banjo, Will, and Mum and Dad, we grew up sheep farm, cattle. And Dad was always mustering, so we always knew how to ride. Mum was big on the horses. She'd ride a horse before school, then 1 or 2 during the day. She was always trying to get in the Australian team for dressage, and she was a very good horsewoman. And she said, why am I getting off a horse, putting you in a car and driving you to school when I can work this horse with you, teach you to ride and go to school? So it was only 7 Ks to school. So we'd go out the back, over the back paddock, through a couple of neighbouring properties, crossed one asphalt road, down a dirt road, into the back of the school. Because we were farmers, the elders' paddock was at the back of the school. We asked the elders, stock and station agent, can we leave the horses in there? No problem. Went to the sports shed, put the saddles on the hurdles, hung up the bridles, went to school, went home. So Mum saved herself a car trip, worked the horse at the same time. And the beauty of it was, as we got older, we would just jump the fences, so the times got quicker. But Gillen was always a couple of years older on a bigger horse. He would jump the gates for a while and I had to get off. So he would be on time and I'd be late.
Yeah.
And I would always take a tennis racket to school, put it in the backpack, and the tennis racket, when you're trotting along, would just be smacking you on the back of the head. So I ended up working out that it was easier to leave the tennis racket at school. But yeah, that's how we started. We would ride to school, and we've been on the horses since, and have a lot to do with horses still, breed our own, have a few slow race horses. And a great morning for us would be to get up early, watch Lindsay Park track work, which was 15 minutes down the road. We were Mount Pleasant, it was at Angaston. Yes. And a perfect morning, C.S. Hayes would be alongside David Hayes and Pete Hayes.
Wow.
And you'd be watching Group 1 horses work.
Royalty.
Crazy. So we were very lucky growing up, but that farm environment taught us all a lot.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. So, and you loved your sport.
Yeah, I was back then, so I was born in 75, year 1, 81. So 80s, early 90s was school for me. So SNFL was big. AFL hadn't come in. So I was a Nord supporter, wanted to be full forward at Nord in the SNFL Grand Final. I played Davis Cup tennis. Dad put a court in for us because I had a bit of ability and sort of got to a reasonable level and blew my knee up playing footy. But sport was it for me. Dad, we always called singlet because it was always on our backs. Like if it was light, go and work. If it was dark, come in. But that was sort of how it was. And there was no TV during the week, so we just played sport. We played sport or work. We were either drenching sheep, mustering cattle, or playing sport. So it's the work and sport has always been a big part of my life. And sort of it's funny how it just came to be life in the end. There was no intention to be working in media, or I just wanted to play sport, not talk about it.
Yeah.
I just didn't know about that. So you actually played Davis Cup tennis?
No, I wanted to play Davis.
Oh, you wanted to? I thought you. Sorry, my bad.
So I got to
hang on a minute. What have I missed?
There was a few of us that were in that sort of journey where do you want to go and have a year in Europe and play the satellite circuit, work out if you're good enough.
Wow.
And my coach Pete Smith he coached Peter Carter, Roger Rashid, Darren Cale, John Fitzgerald, Leighton Hewitt. Yeah. If you were good in South Australia, you went to Peter Smith. And he said to my old man, remember he's singlet, didn't want us to do anything other than work, give him a year off and let him play in Europe and see if he's good enough. And he said, there's no way he's taking a year off school, no chance.
Wow.
And he said, you should let him have a go. And I was playing senior pennant tennis. A's is a year 8 student. So he said, all right, one year, he can do 1990, which was going to be year 10 for me. And he said to me, you can have 1 year, but you got to stop playing stop playing football, focus on your tennis. And back then, football's everything. Yeah. You wanted to win the Intercol, which was St Peters versus Prince Alfred in South Australia. He said, just give it up. I said, there's 2 more games to go. You know what happens. You do your knee in the second last game, never play much footy or tennis again. So I have 2 Ricos, 9 arthroscopes, and here I am on the Little Fish podcast.
Yeah. He's made it.
Straight to the top.
Yeah, so it's sliding doors. So I always talk about this. People say, are you disappointed you did your knee? I don't think I was good enough to make it at that level, but would have had one of those sort of journeyman few years, which would have been great fun. But what happens? You don't meet X and you don't meet Y and you don't meet Sophie and you don't have these 3 kids and you don't meet Mark Walkley and he doesn't take your kids water skiing and you don't get on the podcast.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So you did your knee and then you started sort of setting your mind on staying in sport?
Yeah, I did my knee in 89, finished school in 92, took a year off, jackarooed, went and worked in the Hunter Valley, did commerce because it was sort of broad business degree, knew that was sort of where my life lay, but always sort of had an angle that I wanted to work in sport. And as things do, you have those conversations, and I met a guy who said, you should ring this guy called Craig Kelly. He's Craig Kelly from Norwood. Like, he was my centre-half back. He's my guy. I wrote to the Norwood Football Club, asked for a poster from someone. Craig Kelly signed it and sent it back. So suddenly, years later, you're ringing Craig Kelly, who's just started a sports management agency, and he says, listen, as luck has it, someone resigned today. What do you know about events? I knew nothing about events, but I said, events, specialty, My life's been big events. Right, you head up the events and entertainment division. So that's where I started. I headed up a new division for a new company called ESP, which has become TLA, which is a big management group. And one thing led to another. And I being sort of running all the budgets, why am I paying MCs to host these things? Yeah. I used to do it myself. Bottom line looks better, ingratiate myself with Craig, hit the budget. And then one day somebody saw me doing something, said, do you want to do a pilot? And there you go.
So it was completely organic. There was no goal at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, awesome.
And that's what happens, I think, a lot in life. You sort of end up going down this path and there's a fork in the road and you take that and then there's another fork. Suddenly you're a long way from where you started and you've kept making these fun choices, hopefully with good people all the way. And you end up doing things that never really feel like work. And that's what sort of happened. Like I got this offer in 2008 to host a football show out of nowhere. Never been on radio, never been on TV. They said, do you want to do a footy show? It's like, when? They said Sunday. It's like, oh, right, okay. 15 years later, we're, day 10 of the Winters, which is I think 4th Olympics now. I've done a couple of Com Games and never have I felt like it's been anything other than really good fun.
And do you sort of attribute, because it sort of wasn't necessarily mapped out, you sort of create your own luck along the way just by putting yourself out there, taking risks, those kind of things sort of, it's like where opportunity meets,
Yeah, I think so. I think that's life generally, isn't it? You've got little windows. Do you see the gap? Can you get through the gap? And then what do you make of it when you're through? Do you go on a reality TV show and end up in a great building business? Do you go from writing a letter to Nord and then making the phone call to Craig Kelly and then there's always opportunities in life. It's do you see it and then are you good enough to take it, I guess.
You back yourself.
And believe in yourself. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's happened, I think, for all the people that have gone down whatever path it is. They've seen this is my path. It's how far do you get down it and how much fun do you have? And surrounding yourself with good people all the way is critical for me. Like no one does anything by themselves. Opportunity, great. Who's coming with me on this journey and how do we have fun? Because it's never going to be just highs. There's highs and lows and plenty of speed humps. Do it with fun people, good people.
Great lesson.
Yeah, that's good advice right there.
So, and that's the thing. What we've heard there is, you went through it pretty quickly, but to take your opportunities, to see the opportunity, and to have a go, pick up the phone to Ned and say, what's going on? Oh, as luck would have it, but you picked up the phone.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of, like, I still am a call guy. A lot of people send emails. Check the phone now. There's 1,500 emails that I haven't got to, and people are looking for those opportunities through email or through text.
Yeah.
When people make the effort to make the call or knock on the door, it's like, come in, sit down, let's work through this. And suddenly you're face to face with that connection, with that interaction, trying to help the 18-year-old that was where you were one day. And you're much more inclined to do that when they're in front of you. But an email from an anonymous sort of gets lost in the abyss. So the one thing that I keep telling people is continue to be in people's faces, introducing yourself, looking them in the eye, telling them what you want to do. And then once you've got that interaction and that connection, I think you're a much better chance of going where you want to go.
So, hey, for me, I guess I just want to ask, where does that confidence or backing yourself come from? Because you said yourself, why would I pay an MC? I'm just going to do it with no experience. Yeah. And then I'm going to host a AFL TV show with no experience and do it. Where does that come from? Does it come from growing up on the farm with 3 brothers or?
Yeah, I thought probably the farm and probably mum and dad. So you're a product of your environment, I guess. They were all around, if you work hard, good things will happen. Yeah. Surround yourself with good people, good things will happen. So when the opportunity came, it's like, well, if I work hard, it'll work out okay. And if it doesn't, I'm not good enough. But I'm not going to say no because I may not be good enough. I'm going to say yes and work out if I am. So I think that's been the philosophy. And I say to my kids now, it's like, school cross country is coming up. When is it? March. Do you want to end up on the podium? If you do, we've got to do a lot of work together. I'm prepared to work with you, but if you're not prepared to do the work, don't expect the outcome. So every morning you go for a run. And then when they actually set off on the day, they understand that there's a good amount of work has been done. They get to a position where, when the light goes on that Sunday morning or you stand up in front of the crowd, you've done the work, so it should be okay. So morning of, I'm more nervous than they are. Off they go. I get more nervous watching them run across country than I do standing up and doing the Brownlow of the Olympics.
Wow. That's wild.
The great news is Indy crushed it. She won. Miller ran podium for the 3rd year in a row. But for me, the joy of that is much more than anything I've achieved. And it comes back to, if you do the work, it'll be okay. And I think that was a lesson from my old man. He said, nothing comes to you without doing a heap of work. And if you look at all the great performers, Kobe or Roger or Rafa, the bulk of the best in the world have done more work than the opposition. Yep. Yeah, that's saying you don't fall on top of the mountain. You got to do the work to get there.
Yeah.
You gotta climb.
So, confidence, naivety, probably, saying yes.
Yeah.
That sort of, that when you're young, you take a lot of risks, I think, without knowing the consequences. When you get older, you protect your wicket a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I said to Bruce before Rio, his 11th games, I said, you're more nervous now or back in 1980? He said, nah, much more nervous now. I said,
really?
why is that? He said, well, everyone thinks I'm much better than I am. I need to protect that reputation. In 1980, I knew I could do it. Now I'm sort of wondering whether I can. Bruce, just on, you talk about individuals that you learn from. They say never meet your heroes because they'll only let you down. So I had Bruce pegged as a legend. Yep. I idolised him growing up. Then you meet him. So in 2008, when I got given the role, they said, "What? How can we help you?" I said, "Can I just have 5 minutes with Bruce before we go on air?" Bruce always gives you the time. So I sit down with Bruce and I said, "What do I need to know?" He said, "Channel 7 have chosen you for a reason, so believe in yourself. I'll give you 3 tips." He said, "First of all, do the preparation. Do this much. You'll only use this much. You don't know which it's going to be, so do it all, and then you'll be ready." So that's how I've lived my sort of career since. Do the work. The other one, which was slightly odd, he said, don't ever go on air wearing anything you're uncomfortable in because you'll always be distracted. And you just can't be distracted in life. You need to be singularly focused. So it's like, right, one year they gave me a sort of a suit that looked like from Dumb and Dumber. The whole time I was thinking, I can't believe I'm wearing this. It was the worst performance of my life. So that was the second lesson. But the third lesson, which I think is really good for the listeners and for everyone who's sort of wondering where they fit, he said, don't try and be someone else. You'll be a very bad version of them.
Yeah.
Be the best version of yourself. And if that's enough, it's great. And if it's not, that's fine too. But don't try and be someone else. And I say that to the kids. It's like, just be the best version of you. And that I got that from Bruce, and it's worked for me. I've got a lisp. I haven't played. I haven't coached. I haven't been to the Olympics. So that's me. I'm happy with all of that. Now what I'll do is work my ass off to give the listener or the viewer what they need to know for now. And if that's not good enough, they'll get rid of me. And if it is, keep enjoying it.
Fantastic. Be yourself, Dan.
Be yourself.
Be the best version.
We hear that a lot, just be authentic, I guess.
Yeah, and authenticity, I think, if you see through those that aren't.
Yeah.
If I do when I do some speaking, I have 4 individuals, and I know who's going to win the tennis match when they play each other. So I put up an image of Roger and Novak. 99% of the room wants Roger to win. Yeah. Then I put up an image of Rafa and Novak. 95% of the room wants Rafa to win. And then Andy Murray and Novak get slightly more blurred, but it's always the same outcome. And the reason is people have fallen in love with Roger's story more so than they have Rafa, more so than they have Novak and Andy, because he's been so authentic the whole way through, always given extraordinary time and always given of himself, cried when he wants to cry, not tried to hide it, said that, if he wins 1-1 in love in the first round, they say, oh, you must be delighted. He said, well, to be honest, that's sort of how it goes, right? I'm 1 in the world, he's 120. Yeah. That was sort of what was expected to happen. Yeah. And you don't think he's arrogant, you think he's just being authentic. That's what he expected today. So that authenticity piece, I reckon's really, really important. And Bruce was the first to sort of introduce me to that.
But you do it really well as well. Like, obviously, I love watching sport, love watching Olympics. And you're hosting with Abby right now. You guys bounce so well and you're just creating things on the spot. And that's because you're both authentic and you're being yourselves. Yeah, and you're showing your passion of Australia and our sports people, and it's incredible to watch. Yeah,
and I think when I learnt that being imperfect is great, it made it all much easier for me. There was that sort of alpha male thing in Australia is you've got to know all the answers and you need to be able to give everyone the answers, and whether that's your wife or your kids or your mates. I don't know anything about anything. And now that I've acknowledged that, it's much easier. If I make a mistake on air, if I say
Scotty James tried to do a back triple bloody blah blah.
Yeah, and I get it right. It's like, I really made a meal of that. I'm happy to say that on air.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, oh, he's just like us. Yeah. Rather than pretending you didn't make the mistake or you know it. So or if somebody says, oh, he's going to do a triple cork 1080.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to ask, what is that?
Yeah, looks good.
I'm not going to pretend I know because I don't. And then I can't get caught pretending I know.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the same with Soph. My wife, it's like, I just don't know. She's okay. Or if you make a mistake, this is where life got really easy, when you acknowledge your mistakes.
Yeah.
So I made Soph, hands up, I've completely ballsed up the diary this weekend. We're committed to 6 weddings, 3 40ths, and we're going to take the kids to their school camp.
My fault.
As opposed to trying to make it all work or pretending it was her fault, it's like, she goes, okay, let's work through it.
Yeah. You show that little bit of vulnerability.
Yeah,
Someone will work with you.
Yeah, and as long as you're prepared to acknowledge that you don't have the answers and you make errors and you acknowledge when the errors come, so much more simple.
Have you got a big one that stands out, Hamish?
In terms of getting it wrong, probably a lot. I got involved in a business in 2003 that went horribly wrong. We never even got the business open, really. And I was asked to do an interview on, I think it was Late Line or something like that with the ABC. They came in for the kill. They said, you're the CEO of this business. Whose fault is it? I said, well, it's mine. And so suddenly the conversation went from wanting to have a victim to me saying it's me. It's not a victim, a culprit, to me saying I'm the one that got it wrong. And then the conversation and the tone of it changed. It's like, I'll tell you how I got it wrong. I'll tell you where it all went wrong. Now, whether it is your fault or not, as soon as you acknowledge there's been mistakes made, and if you're the leader, just fall on your sword. Yeah. I find when the AFL comes out on a Monday morning and says, here's what we got wrong over the weekend. That decision was wrong, that decision was wrong, and that decision was wrong. Yeah. There is no more discussion.
Oh, the media's all silenced. And they go, oh, well, they've already admitted what's went wrong. We better move on to something else.
Because everyone wants an admission of guilt. Now, if you're guilty, admit you're guilty.
Yeah.
And I've found that's a much easier way to play it. Like, no, I got it completely wrong. My fault. Let's learn from it.
Roll on.
And the piece around learning from it's really critical.
Yeah.
Like, what would I do differently? Write it down. How do we move on? Because every day, my mum, we spoke about, really good writer. She'll give a 5-year-old a lesson and work out what not to do by looking at the 5-year-old. Puts that in the back. Right. It's like you can learn from anyone. Always learning. Like my 8-year-old daughter, she has an amazing ability to get angry very quickly. I'm always learning how to manage her as a father. Like yeah. But then you're also, when you're talking to her about, you have a choice every day, how your day, is it positive and happy and full of energy, or is it negative and woe is me? You make the decision today. And then as you're saying, you go, it's really applicable to me too. I'm actually reinforcing to myself how you need to live your day, I think. So you're learning from the 8-year-old who's taken a shiv to school and not quite. Yeah. I hope she doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. So can we touch on a couple of the big names you've maybe spoken to? You rub shoulders with a few of them. You would have learned a lot, and you sound like the type that wants to learn and wants to get from others. So you probably got a couple of stories.
Yeah, been in the room with some greats. Like, is there anything? Is there any similarities or anything that you sort of observe when you're in these rooms? Yeah, what are they doing? What are they special, or are they just like us and they've like we were saying, they're
outworking everyone,
outworking, taking risks? And
I reckon there's a combination of outworking and an amazing hunger with an extraordinary attention to detail. So if you look at Kobe Bryant, Roger Federer, Bruce as 3 examples, and throw Oprah in as well. So
are they your top 3 or 4, Hamish?
In terms of most outstanding individuals, and with an unbelievable mindset backed up with work ethic that's leaving everyone else in their wake, they're the ones. So Federer stretches for longer each day than a lot of the ATP players train. Like he'll do 60 minutes before a session and 60 after. Now, a lot of players won't be hitting for 2 hours. Then he'll hit in between. So there's no sort of coincidence that at 40, turning 41 this year in August, that he's still going. But so Federer's got an attention to detail like Kobe does, like Oprah does. So I'll give you the Kobe example, and then I'll give you the Federer example and Oprah example. But so Kobe was asked to come and speak in January, February of 2019 at Crown. And I got a call about 8 weeks out and said, would you interview Kobe Bryant? And I said, well, yeah, but it's 8 weeks out. Why don't you have a host? And they said, it's been a bit rushed and we've sent 3 options and he's chosen you. I said, what do you mean? He said, he asked for 3 options to interview him. And when he got the 3, he wanted a minute or so on each to look at so he could make the decision rather than just turn up and be interviewed.
Wow.
It's like, right, okay, so I'm not a big basketball guy. They said, no, that's fine. He wants you, and it's more around life than it is basketball.
Picked by Kobe.
Yeah, I was going to
Happy
say,
with
do you know the other 2?
I do, and I won't tell you who they are.
Yeah.
Quarters and Andy Marr, maybe.
So then I arrive, so they ring and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to meet with Kobe before we go on stage so that we have talked, got a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit like we were talking before. Once you're in front of someone, everyone gets disarmed, you chat, then next time you meet each other, it's easier as opposed to text, email, phone. So I walk into his suite on the Tuesday before the Wednesday gig. I walk in and there are agents all around the place. Mark Walkley, his agent's over there, and then Lean's over there, and Hamish is over there. And he sees me come in. He stands up, he walks over, he goes, Hamish. It's like, yes, you must be Kobe.
Yeah.
Is it Kobe, is it?
Yeah.
And so he said, great to have you. Come and sit down. So he immediately, he's got my name. He's got up, 2 big plays already, shaken the hand, looked in the eye, and then sat me down. So within 20 seconds, you've gone from being nervous, anxious, apprehensive to being completely disarmed. So he's a magician at doing the work.
Yeah.
He's remembered the name. So as opposed to relying on the agent to introduce him, he said, what's the guy that's coming again? Hamish, who's the guy? So star on the name. And I'll give you a Roger piece on the name in a minute. So then sits down, he says, how are the kids?
Wow.
Yeah. You and I have both got
That's
3
wild.
kids.
Yeah.
He said, I've got another one on the way, but it's like, oh my God. So then he talks around similar age, parenting. What do you find most difficult about fathering? What are the lessons you've learned? It's like, this guy is just unbelievable. Yeah. Hamish, look in the eye, sit down, got 3 kids. Let's talk about something mutual ground, common ground. Yeah. Chat. Then he said, so what do you want to do tomorrow night? I said, well, I was thinking sort of a third of life before basketball, third of life on the court, and then a third of life post. He goes, yeah, perfect. Where do you want to start? I said, well, I want to go back at the very start when you had that under 10 year and you played 60 games and didn't score a point. And at the end of your 60th game, your father said to you, Kobe, if you score a point or don't, it doesn't matter, I still love you. He said, how'd you know that? I said, I just made some calls. He said, right, you and I are going to get on well.
Yeah, wow. That's good research.
And he said, and then I said, I also want to talk about, after that first, your first playoff year, you had those 4 air balls, 2 late and then 2 in overtime. And then, going home that night, putting down the bags, ringing the janitor at the Palisades High School and going to the gym and putting the 4 cones down for the 4 spots where you missed from and just for 4 hours shooting. So you never missed again. Wow. He said, how'd you know that? I said, same guy. He said, okay, this is what's going to happen tomorrow night. You and I are going to talk. You've done the work, and I appreciate that because all I do is do more work than anyone else. And there was a conversation that we had on stage. He talked about how a criticism of him was being too hard on everyone else around him. And he said, I'm okay with that because I do the work and I expect other people to do the work. I'm not expecting people to do more than me. I'm just expecting people to do enough to get the very best out of themselves. He said, I also want to have the hard conversations. Dan, if you're sitting at the restaurant, you got spinach out of your teeth, I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to avoid that hard chat.
Yeah.
And he said, that's how I live my life. And it was that 48 hours was an incredible 48 hours on preparation, attention to detail, doing the work, and making people around you feel comfortable. So we get off the stage, and normally they just go, thanks very much, and disappear. We had 15 minutes just at the side of the stage. There's 3,000 people out on the floor. You had to go and sign stuff and do stuff. And we sort of sat there and chat. And he said, if you're ever in LA, come and I'd love to show you around the office.
Come shoot some hoops.
Yeah.
And some people say it and you go, I would never ring him.
Yeah.
If I was ever going to go to LA, I would have rung him. I'm sure he would have.
Taken the time.
For sure.
Taken the time. And he was amazing. He said, you keep learning in life and keep developing. He said, I had 20 really great years in the NBA. 5 championship rings, but he said, my next 20 years will be more meaningful and I'll achieve more. It's like you always, a lot of people have success and then sort of he just was driven to assist and do more and be
I was going to ask you
purposeful.
about something like that, Hamish. Like you've obviously been, as we've sort of spoke about, you've been Olympics, all Brownlow, any big sport, grand final, any big sporting event here in Australia. So you've climbed the mountain. When you get to the top of the mountain, have you still got that same fire and passion yourself? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you still get as excited when you get the China Olympics or whatever? Like, do you still have that burning desire?
When I was a kid, if you'd said to me that you would host the Brownlow and the Summer and the Winter Olympics on 7, you'd think that's A, impossible. And B, I just can't see how that happens. When you get there, because you've taken, I guess, a series of steps, it sort of becomes more normalised a little bit. But still, the first Brownlow medal I hosted was 2019, and it was in the Crown Palladium. The last two have been COVID events, which have been slightly complicated. But there was a moment where they say in your ear 2 minutes, and everyone sort of gets nervous. And the one thing that I won't allow to happen is people to start taking it really seriously, because as soon as that happens, the whole thing becomes a disaster. Yeah. So, I'll say to the guy yelling out, 2 minutes. I said, sir, just stop yelling. It's like try and everyone feel. And then a minute, sir, just still yelling. Yeah. And then there's 30 seconds. And I looked over at Gil, who was about to read the votes.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, shit, this is weird.
Yeah.
He said, from a town of 260, I'm reading the votes and you're hosting the thing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's normally looking back on the horse.
Yeah.
Go, where is he? You're coming over the fence or what?
Exactly. Tennis racket slapping into the back. But you do have those moments where you think, this is unbelievable that a kid with average sporting ability has got to a point in life that he just dreamt about as a kid. It's a bit like Jacqueline Narracott. She dreamt about winning an Olympic medal. She does it in the skeleton 2 nights ago. But so, when you walk out on the Brownlow, the first few steps before you say anything, you think, this is unbelievable. Yeah. And then you get on with the job. And then once you've done the Brownlow, you want to do it better the next year. And once you've done the Olympics, you want to keep improving. Like when we first did the Olympics to how we're broadcasting it now, it's very different. I think it's a better product now. And that's because you keep working with the producer saying, how can we get the Olympics to be the best coverage possible into the homes of the Aussies? Because when I'm in year 4 watching Dean Lucan and Glennis Nunn and the guys win their 4 gold medals, I'm a 9-year-old dreaming of being there. Yeah. So let's do the same for this generation. And you probably don't – I don't ever think that I've got to the top of anything. I just think I'm having an unbelievably good fun time, and every now and again you're in front of the TV with good people around you. Sort of, I never think, oh, you're the host of the Olympics and the Brownlow, that's awesome. I just have fun each day, and sometimes the camera's on. So I'm lucky to do what I'm doing. I'm unbelievably aware of how fortunate I am to be doing the job I'm doing. But I'm okay at it. There's an amazing amount to improve on. I keep getting counsel from those close to me on how to keep going forward. But it comes back to me. Like whether you are 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, it's largely irrelevant. The thing that I keep saying to my kids that I live by is there's a few rules in our house. And I said this to Soph the other day. I said, what is it that we want our kids to leave with when they finally disappear out of the house? And just give me one word. We sort of talked about it for 72 hours. We both settled on respect. So if you respect your brother and your sister and those kids at school, whatever their race or colour or background, and you respect the value of the dollar and you respect your job and you respect everything around you, the environment, then I think you're in a really good spot. But we keep saying at the dinner table, there's a couple of rules. One is comparison is a thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to anyone.
That's a cracker. That's a new one.
Because as soon as you do, if I compare myself to Bruce, I'm going to be flat as a biscuit. If I compare myself to the best in the US, Europe, so again, don't compare.
Yep.
So Indy, don't worry about finishing second or third. Just be happy with whatever it is you're going through. So, and the other is be kind, be kind, be kind. And then everything sort of works out. If you're sort of putting that out there, generally being respectful and being kind works. And if people are taking advantage of you, they're the wrong people.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how we try and do it. So coming back to your question, it's like I'm privileged to be where I am. I'm happy to be where I am. I don't think that I'm on top of the mountain by any means, but been bloody good fun.
Is there
surrounded
one-
by good people.
Is there one that's eluding you at the moment? One sporting event that you're looking at, going, "Oh, geez, it'd be nice to add that to the."
I'm going to timestamp
Yeah.
something today, something that's happening
have you got
today,
one?
probably right now. That'd be pretty good commentary if you could get it.
Which is at the
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl would be unbelievable to host.
So you're going to say the block auctions or something?
Super Bowl.
Rams, Bengals today. That's pretty soon. So I've been amazingly fortunate that when I arrived at 7, we just got the football rights back, and we've had it since 2007. I arrived 08. So football, I love. Horse racing, I've just been obsessed with all my life, from the breeding to the racing to I used to do track work before school, as I was saying. I've done track work at Newmarket in the UK, travelled, did 6 months work in Kentucky. I just love the horse racing. And then the tennis, I tried to make a career of it, and we just happened to have the tennis. And then, so people say to me, they text, "Oh, do you miss the tennis?" It's like, yeah, I do. and they, but now people say, when you watch it, what do you feel? It's like the girl that I was obsessed with, who broke up with me. It's like watching her go out to dinner the whole time with someone else. It's like, why are you with him? Didn't we get on well? That's sort of how the tennis is. So they're my 3 great loves, and I've got to do those. And then when you break it down, I've never called a grand final. I've hosted the grand final, hosted the Brownlow. They're the things that, like, Anzac Day is the most extraordinary. People say, what are your favourite moments? And the reality is, it's not the sport, but the moments within the sport. So if you said, give me your top couple of moments, Winx's 3rd Cox Plate, not her 4th.
Yeah, my
The
dad.
3rd.
For some reason, Bruce crossed down to me. So I used to go behind the barriers, and he would 2 minutes out say, "What are you seeing?" And I walked down the straight, which Cox Plate Day is not far off a B&S, to be honest. Like, there's just people heaving, noise everywhere. And this is pre-COVID, and it was just madness. And then you go past the madness, past the members, into this really quiet spot at the 2,040 metres. I can't remember how many horses were in the 3rd, but they're all sort of starting to load. And Hugh Bowman and I had done quite a lot together because we'd sort of started following Winx. And I grew up on the farms just watching these stock horses walk around behind cattle on a loose rein and just unfazed by anything. I just looked at her, and Hugh Bowman's from Dunedoo. He'd done a lot of cattle work in his time, just moving mobs with his old man. I looked, and Bruce says, "Hamish, what are you seeing?" I said, "I'm seeing a horse that is completely unaware that the world is watching, that she's trying to become the first mare to win 3 Cox Plates,
Wow.
equal up with Kingston Town. But I could be in a paddock of 5,000 acres watching a stock horse walk around on a loose rein. There are people watching all around the world with what's about to happen. And down here, it's complete silence. I've left the members. I've left the broadcast area. I can hear the seagulls above, and I can hear her feet just walk through the grass. You sit there going, how am I here?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how have I ended up here? So there's that moment is incredible. There's Anzac Day, when you ask everyone to stand, take off their hats, and there's the minute silence. And when there's 95,000 people there, and you can literally hear in the 3rd row, or a baby just, it's like a seagull. It's like, this is so powerful. And then you look down the lines of the Collingwood players, you look down the lines of the Essendon players,
The last post.
and then the last
Oh,
part.
it's insane.
It's
I've been for it, yeah.
It is the most extraordinary, chilling environment you'll ever be in. And again, how am I here?
yeah.
You know, and so there was an environment that I got into with. So when my wife and I, Soph, got married in 2010, Gillen was my best man. He said, Soph and Hamish have got a pretty open relationship. Not many of you know that, but Sophie's got an exception rule, and so does Hamish. If Sophie gets to meet and sleep with Jack Johnson, Hamish will approve that. And if Hamish meets Roger Federer, Sophie's So I've always been obsessed with Federer. And then, as sort of fate would have it, during 2010, Australia got to the semi-finals of the Davis Cup, and so did Switzerland, and we met. And we were hosting the tie, and it was during the football, and Saul Stein, who was the head of sport, said, can you go up to Royal Sydney where they put the grass courts on and do the Davis Cup with Nuke? It's like, yeah. There was it was just after the US Open, there was some debate as to whether Federer would fly from winning the US and actually play the next Thursday. Anyway, transpires he does. They say to me on the Thursday, you've got 5 minutes with Federer to do an interview that we'll use over the weekend. And those 5-minute interviews never reach any great heights.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking, how do I develop an emotional connection with Federer? And then I think, he and I have a mutual mate that, that's the piece where he and I may actually connect. So I spoke earlier about Peter Smith coaching in South Australia. One of the guys he coached was a guy called Peter Carter, who got on the top 200 in the world. Amazingly good player, but he lived just down the road from where I grew up in a town called Nuriupta. Country boy, amazing salt-of-the-earth guy. And he, after he had finished, started coaching Federer. And I'd known him from hitting with him years prior. Roger's father is Swiss. Roger's mother, Lynette, is South African. And at the end of one of the seasons, they'd organise a trip for Peter Carter to go to South Africa, and he died in South Africa. And the Federers sort of felt responsible for it. And he was an amazing guy. And he took Federer from being a prodigious junior to starting to really perform and hit the highs. And he was just such a wonderful guy. If you look in the Federer's box in the Australian Open, often Mr. and Mrs. Carter will be there. He says to them, you've got access to my player box whenever you want, anywhere in the world, whenever you want.
Wow.
They'll often come over to Melbourne. So I walk in and there's same scenario again, agents everywhere. Yeah, Lean, Mark, et cetera, everyone just organising him. They said, 5 minutes. Like, yeah, no. So we walk into the room, not dissimilar to this, cameras and everything ready to go. I say, Roger, Hamish McLachlan, you and I have a mutual mate in Peter Carter. He said, you know Peter Carter? I said, yeah, we used to hit balls together in Adelaide. And he says to everyone in Swiss, out you go. An hour later, after just chatting about life and Pete and where it all gone, he said, should we do the interview? I said, yeah, let's do the interview. So then that's our first engagement.
Yeah.
And then we spend 3 days together because it's only Nuke and I. So he's the only media that he's dealing with. So you get to sort of spend time and he always acknowledges. And since that Peter Carter mutual moment, there's not once that I've been in a hallway at the Aussie Open or in an environment where he doesn't just acknowledge and say, g'day. So then the last Open we do, he's playing, I think he plays Rafa in the final. He's the last of the 7 do. And the day prior, you have this 6-minute window to interview the 2 finalists. And it's a room like this, chair for me, chair for Roger, 2 cameras, 1 lighting guy, and then an audio guy or girl. Roger has to do it for Channel 7, ESPN, WoWo, I think it's called, then Eurosport. So he goes 6 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes. He comes in, opens the door. He goes, hi, Roger Federer. He goes, I'm Ben. Hi, Roger Federer. I'm Pete. Hi, Roger Federer. I'm Dan. Hi, Roger Federer. I'm Len. Guys, where do you want me? Here. This sound okay? 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep, great. Do the interview. He goes, we got okay. We've got everything you need. Need anything else? Another language? It's like, no, we're good.
Another language.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Len. 4 names.
Yeah.
Then goes to the next and the next and the next and remembers them. Novak comes in. He goes, hey, guys, not rude, not abrasive, fine. But why is Federer the highest paid, most loved sportsman that's ever held a tennis racket? Because Ben, Pete, Dan.
Details.
So the other thing, attention to detail and respect, mutual respect and connection. So Dan leaves feeling great. Roger said my name twice and remembered my name, looked me in the eye and left. Like whoever I was barracking for, I'm not anymore. I'm with him.
Yeah.
So, there's that is such an important thing. I say to my kids, Lex, who's 5, I said, look Mark in the eye, shake Mark, look him in the eye and say, thank you, Mark, for teaching me to ski. Thank you, Mark, for teaching me to ski. It's like, right, every time. Go to the coffee shop, you're paying Lex, say, thank you for the coffee, ask what her name is, thank her, or if she's got a name. So, I don't know, there's small lessons that you observe from these guys.
And they're the fundamentals though, aren't they?
Well, just because they're the best tennis player in the world doesn't mean they're good people. Federer just happens to be a wonderful person. His parents have obviously done an extraordinary job, surrounded himself with good people, and just keeps coming back to the fact that we are all human beings, all wanting the same thing, to be loved, to feel validated, to have this emotional connection and to be happy and healthy. That's it. And then Ash Barty's great. It's like that person versus performance piece. Because she wins, she's not a better person. Because she loses, she's not a worse person. Just be a good person regardless. Yeah. And then, life sort of takes care of itself from there. So that's the observation of a lot of these guys. Kobe, Roger, Bruce. Oprah was the same. I had to do something for Swiss years ago. Go to New Zealand. It was the same scenario as Kobe. Knew my name, knew I was married, knew I had kids, talked about me for a long time before she spoke about what we were going to do. 2 Saturday nights in a row years ago, we sat next to 2 number 1 tennis players in the world, my wife and I. One was unbelievably disappointing, won't mention the name. The other, after 3 hours of dinner, neither Soph nor I had been able to get a question in to them because all he had done was, Soph, tell me about the designing. You're designing the house at the farm, you don't?
Wow.
Yeah.
And he's the same guy that we were standing in line waiting for in the Brisbane International. We're waiting for the courtesy cars to take us to the courts, and we're chatting away. And his car arrives, and it's one of those Kia, the vans with like, I don't know why we all don't have them with kids and sporting equipment.
Oh, it's a big big commitment. Getting the old
Pico needs one.
It's a carnival. It's a carnival.
We've got the 4 kids, and people say, when are you getting the carnival, Pete? And I said, I have my dead body.
So he, and I'll give you his name in a moment, we're sitting, I said, these good? He goes, yeah, good for everything. I said, funny, I've just been up in the room Googling. Soph just bought me a paddleboard for Christmas. I bought her a paddleboard. You realise how hard they are to get around? Like, they're just a nightmare. I'm going to buy a $3,000 Hilux and just have something made so they sit in the back, just go to the beach and back. He goes, you going to get it? I said, well, have a look at this. And I showed him. I said, I'm now negotiating with a guy from Ballina on an F100.
Oh, wow.
That's been done up. I've gone from a $3,000 Hilux. I'm now currently negotiating somewhere between 20 and 25 grand on this thing I do not need. He goes, mate, you got to buy it. I said, I'll see how he plays out. So Brisbane comes and goes. The night before the Australian Open final, the Australian Open gets underway, you sort of do all your tests and everything at 7. Everyone's sort of pretty casual and people are asking for grabs. Dan, who do you think's going to win? So this guy is sitting there on air with ABC radio and he sees me walking past and I just wave. He goes, just hang on one sec, guys. Hamish, come over. So he's doing an interview with Dan on ABC Radio. He says, Dan, just got to give you a scenario here. So Hamish and I have been talking about whether or not he's going to buy a Hilux and F100. He said, just to bring it in. So his wife doesn't know, and he explains the story.
Yeah, wow.
He goes, Hamish, did you buy the F100? I said, yeah, I did. He goes, yeah, he bought the F100. Yeah, it's British racing green. It's great. So that's Pat Rafter.
Oh, wow.
So Pat Rafter
Legend.
is so interested in you.
Yeah.
You are just so drawn to him.
Yeah.
I talk about people being interested and interesting. Interesting's great. Interested is so much more important.
Yep.
So if you can be both, great.
Yeah.
But being interested just means ask questions.
And so much more
listen
powerful.
to the answers. And then when you see them next time, it's like follow up. How is their kid that was in hospital? How is their golf game that they've just been obsessed by and taken up threes? Like that conversation keeps rolling.
Yeah, and it's so much more powerful from those guys at the top, right?
It lands, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it lands
really,
with that person
with the
and
impact,
they connect. And these people are just putting in the work.
Yeah,
the
it just keeps
Oprahs,
coming.
the Federers, whatever it is, they research who they're about to meet.
Yeah, but
and they care.
It's that thing that's like you never remember what people said. You remember how they made you feel.
It's feelings.
And that's that interest piece. He's interested in me. He cares about me. He sees me. It's simple stuff. It's like my wife and I argue over the most ridiculous things. So then I go, what actually is it that she wants? She wants me to listen to her. So phone when I'm in at night goes into a fruit bowl now. No phone. Look her in the eye, listen to what she says, have the conversation, and then once we're done, get back to the stuff that annoys her. But it's really simple to get it right. Really simple to get it wrong.
Yeah, it is. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we could all use a couple of lessons in that. Yeah. I want to go somewhere, Hayne, which I think this sort of stuff's the most important of it all. And you touched on it a bit before we went on air. I'll let you talk about the Melbourne Grand Final and the decisions you made that day and where where you wanted to spend your time. But then also into, your first daughter.
Yep.
You worked really hard, went through the IVF, it's been documented, and then sort of talk about the way that played out and just what that's done to you and the way you act today, because you don't take things too seriously. And I think it's something that I try and work on, because the things that stress you out and you look back on, you go, why did I stress myself out about that? So, always keeping that perspective and learning those lessons in life, I think is super, super important. And I reckon you've probably done it, or you're close to,
Well, you're always trying to, I think, have great perspective and not sweat the little things and realise that most of the stuff that you are agitated or anxious about or worrying about is not going to be an issue in 5 years' time. Right. So I'll give you the Miller story first, to then I'll probably get to the grand final, because I probably wouldn't have made the decisions I made if the Miller scenario hadn't happened. So my wife and I, when we married, she'd had a terrible car accident and she'd always known that she was very unlikely to have children, at least naturally. So we start going down the IVF process, and the chances of it happening naturally, Lynn Burmeister says are 3%, IVF 33%. So right, let's get involved with the IVF. 18 months of pills and pessaries and needles and getting her body in a state where we could have a child. First egg goes in, no good. Operation, second egg goes in, no good. And when, for those listening, if your wife is going through IVF, understand how unbelievably emotional it is for them. When the phone call comes on the 10th day after the egg has gone in, they do the blood test and they say, is that Sophie McLachlan? Yes, birth date, 24th of the 10th, 74. I'm sorry to tell you they're not pregnant. The low is incredible. So then we do the third egg and we get the good phone call. And then at 8 months, we have to have an emergency C-section because she's got some issues, healthy child, fantastic. We then go and have a Christmas in the snow, which we both always wanted to do. I then go and do the Australian Open. Soph calls me, she's still up in Byron Bay with her mother, and says, there's something wrong with Miller. Like, she keeps having these twitches and I just don't know what it is, but there's something wrong. End of the day, she goes, I can't actually get her attention anymore. Like, it's like you pulled the batteries out and she's done. The next day, I'm flying back. There's something wrong. And I'd say, there's nothing wrong. Just don't stress about it. Get back, go and see our paediatrician. She sees the video that Sophie's cleverly taken of the twitching and says, I've just rung the head of neurology at Royal Children's. He's waiting for you. It's like, head of neurology? She said, just go there now as fast as you can. Don't go home. Just get there straight away. We go to Royal Children's and there's a fellow waiting there and she says, I'm going to take you and Miller and we're going to do some testing. The head of neurology and 12 others are about to, for 2 hours, observe your daughter. It's like, what do you think it is? She said, I can't say anything, but we'll tell you in a few hours. So we take Miller into this room and they put 37 electrodes on her head. It's like, what is going on here? We have been told nothing at this point. All I know is she's having some twitches. 2 hours later, Jeremy Freeman comes in and says, hi, I'm Jeremy Freeman. I'm one of the neurologists here at the emergency department, Royal Children's. Your daughter has West syndrome. 10% she'll die in hospital. 80% she'll have brain damage for life. 10% chance she gets through unscathed. It's like, sorry? He said, 10, 80, 10. It's like, right. So we better talk about a few things. He said, yeah. So we talked through all the scenarios. Why? 2/3 of cases, brain cancer, brain tumour, brain lesion. 1/3 of cases, no one knows. And luckily, Miller didn't have brain cancer, brain tumour, brain lesion, but it's the same outcome. If the seizures don't stop in 6 days, they don't stop, and you've got either a 10% or an 80% on your hands. The chances of getting to 10% unscathed don't happen after 6 days. I said, so what haven't I asked you? He said, you haven't asked me if I'm the best in the world at this. I said, are you? And he said, it's either me or a guy in Canada, and he isn't here. So, right. I said, what was your name again? He said, Jeremy Freeman. I said, this is Miller Freeman. You save her. So we then go on this journey that has a lot of ups and downs, and it's been well documented. If I do it in full now, we'll run out of time and I'll start crying and then we'll get emotional and Mark Walkley will cry. Wonder why I'll cry. But what happened was we went through this journey that was just so extraordinary where we go, is she going to die in hospital? Can we stop the seizures within 6 days? And we had to put 4 mils of a steroid in that was so severe that she would lose her voice within 24 hours from screaming. She would then get an appetite that was bigger than mine and she would blow up with the steroids and the food to a point where you didn't recognise her. So every day we had to have people open her jaw to get the prednisolone in because it was such an ordeal for her. So Gillen would come in at 7 o'clock in the morning, then 1 at 11, 1 at 3, 1 at 7, 4 mil doses a day. Day 1, 5 sets of seizures. Day 2, 5 sets of seizures. Day 3, seizures throughout the day. Day 4, Gillen comes in, does a 7 a.m. shift. He comes in and he says, today's the day. No seizures today. I got a really good feeling about today. Today's the day. So I go to the fridge, get the prednisolone, put it in, walk back to Gillen, who's on the couch with Miller. Gillen's just wailing and she's having seizures in his arms. So he says, how can this be happening to such an innocent child? It's like, I don't know, but it's happening. We've got 2 days to get this right. Day 5, heap of seizures. Day 6, it's like, if they don't stop by day 6, brain damage for life. 10% chance, but the 10% chance is with each day getting less of death. So it's like, all right, at least she's going to be alive. Day 6, no seizures. And at night, we've done the 4 sets of prednisolone, but we've got to keep giving the steroid for 30 days. And we've got to go and see Jeremy Freeman at 14 days. So at night, Soph and I get into bed, and every second is like, tick, tick.
Slow.
Oh, my God. Get through day 6, day 7, get to day 14, no seizures. Go and see Jeremy, and Jeremy says, it's great. Your brain pattern should do that. When you've got West syndrome, it's just like snowy TV. Crystal clear visions become snow. I want to see you 3 months. Get to 3 months. Every day is agony. Did she have a seizure? Did she? It's like, get to 3 months. And then he says, this is amazing. I just want to see her at 6 months just in case. So we get to 6 months. She steals a highlighter from the desk. She's playing with the highlighter, and we walk into Jeremy Freeman's office. And he said, where'd you get the highlighter from? Out the front. He said, I'm just going to do some cognitive tests and see where she's at. So he does a whole heap of things. He said, I'm not even going to put her on the ECG scan. There's normal development, abnormal development, and supernormal development. She's just passed a whole heap of tests that most 2-year-olds don't pass, and at this point she's 14 months. He said, she's a miracle. Wow. I've never seen a recovery like this. You and I will never see each other again. Bullshit, I'm putting a poster of you on the wall. So Jeremy Freeman replaces Roger Federer as my exception.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But so the journey teaches you that, like, it's amazing. So it's a long-winded story, but to give you the perspective that I've been given from that. So life just stopped. Like the Australian Open, which was really important, became completely irrelevant. The mortgage or the issue over there or the tree that wasn't growing or the relationship over here that was, it's like, it's all white noise. It's all so distant, second to the family unit. And that was this one moment where I thought, what have I been worrying about? Anything else other than wife, kids, mum, dad. So that was through the worst experience of my life. It just completely opened up the doors to this great sort of new weight off the shoulders life that I've been living since, all because of Miller. And so then you make all these choices based on family first, everything else distant second. And there was an opportunity this year. They said, do you want to go and quarantine and go and do the Brownlow from Perth and do the grand final? And it's like, Simon Goodwin, who's a good mate of mine, came to the house at the start of the year, and he and my 2 daughters settled on a theme for the year, and they met at the kitchen table, and he brought them into the conversation. It was around the Greatest Showman, which is my kids' favourite movie, and the whole concept was This Is Me, and there's that great song, This Is Me. And Miller and Indy fell in love with Simon, and Miller is a daddy's girl, and she's stuck fat with the cats. But Indy, who we've spoken about today, who's very much her own lady, comes in that night. I'm in bed. She said, Dad, we need to have a chat. I said, what's happening? She says, I'm a demon. I said, right, that's great. So you Melbourne's your team? She goes, yep. I said, I reckon they're going to have a good year. She said, yep, I'm a demon. You okay with that? I said, no, that's great. You be your own girl. So then through the year, win their first 3, win their first 6, win their first 9, lose to the Crows by a point. She goes, we're going to be all right? I said, we're 9-1. We're going all right. She said, can we get tickets to the grand final? I said, well, I don't know where the grand final is going to be. Transpires it's in Perth. I said, what will happen is we'll watch the grand final together if the Demons get into the grand final. So Gary O'Keefe from 7 and Lewis Martin say, what do you want to do? I said, I want to stay in Melbourne. They go, sure? I said, yeah, I'm going to stay in Melbourne. They said, why? I said, I promised my daughter I'll watch the grand final with her. I can't get her to Perth, so he goes, right, so we'll host the grand final out of there and you're happy not to do it? I said, yeah. He said, can you host the grand final halftime and post-match? I said, I've got to watch the granny with my daughter, and she's up at Mount Buller. Yes, right. Okay. Family's most important. What time do we have to get you off air to get you to Buller? I said, if we get off air at 4, I get there at 7:15. The bounce is at 7:15. He goes, I'll get you off at 3:58. That gives you 2 minutes.
Wow.
So I made sure the car was full. I had a leak before I got in the car. I got there at 7:11.
Yeah.
Walk in, Indy sits on my lap, and I have the greatest grand final experience of my life.
And you've had some good ones too.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
But that for me, it was just like, and when they got 19 points up, the Dogs in the third term.
It's all over, I thought.
And Indy turns around and she goes, Dad, are we in trouble? I said, if we don't kick the next, we are. 16 of the next 17. And but it was just, they're the decisions I'm really pleased I've made. I made one this week. I rang Gary O'Keefe, same guy, head of footy. I said, Gaz, I got a great mate who's getting married round one. Are we travelling this year or not? He said, yeah, we will travel. So round one Saturday night football is in Brisbane. I said, I can't do round one. Is he serious? I said, I'm not missing this woman's wedding. She's 48. She's had an unbelievably tough time. She's Miller's godmother. Yes, mate, family first. And these decisions get easier the more you talk about it. But 10 years ago, there's no way I'm saying I'm missing round one. I'm missing a wedding. Now it's like so
Do you think
easy.
Do you think sometimes because 10 years ago you had the hunger to try and achieve what you've inevitably achieved?
Probably a
Do you know what I
combination,
mean?
Ben. Yeah, probably a combination of hunger and ambition and a lack of security within yourself and in the role. But what happens, I guess, over time is you go, if they say I have to, then we'll have a separate conversation. But I think if you're brave enough to ask, you're not asking for anything that's unreasonable.
It can be conflicting. Like for me, I've sort of, because I've got 3 kids as well, and most important thing forever, but I guess we're on the grind and trying to build the business and stuff, and it can be conflicting sometimes where you go,
It's hard.
oh yeah, you go, man, I want to do that. But
I missed the kids cross country last year. I will never miss it again.
So you have to make, right.
I made the wrong decision.
And that was the lesson to
It was complicated. So training for the cross country, and then they move the cross country date with COVID.
Yeah.
And I look at the new date, and there's just something I cannot get out of. I'm presenting to 20 CEOs that have all been locked in for a long time on something. It's like, oh no. So I ring the school.
He's going to move across country. He's going to move across country.
on the tally.
What time are they running? And she's like, this and this. Like, definitely that date. Unless COVID changes it, that's the date. It's like, right, we'll play it by ear. So I miss it. And I say to the group, guys, sorry, there's going to be a phone call coming in twice that I have to take. I say to Soph, can you FaceTime me the cross country? So I'm in front of the CEO. I said, guys, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I've got 4 minutes where I can't do him. And you find a way. But those decisions I'm now not getting as wrong as I always used to.
Because of
Miller.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think when you do that and you have the balls to go to a boss or go to someone and say, this is what I'm doing, like I feel like you get respect somewhere. Maybe not everyone, but I feel like the majority would say, you know what, I respect that guy. Maybe, and then maybe they reflect on themselves.
Yeah, and I think when the time's right, you work your ass off and you go, but it's like I just can't miss. Yeah. In 4 weeks' time, there's something I can't make, no problem.
Yeah, if you're the guy that's always turning up, always working,
you get the runs on the board first.
Yeah, 100%.
Just get the balance right.
Yeah.
Work your ass off, do the work, do the preparation, but don't lose sight of what's really important, and that's home.
Yep.
Amazing. What else, Hamish? Have we
missed?
Have we covered all the good stories? What haven't you told me? What haven't you told us, Hamish?
I've got a question.
I want to ask if you got to call something. It's your last call that you're ever going to do, and you're commentating. Is it going to be? Is it going to be the Melbourne Cup last 100? Is it going to be the 100-metre in the Olympics?
It's going to be a home Olympics in 2032 in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And Miller and Indian Lex have all made the team.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. The mixed relay.
Mixed relay.
Yeah, nice.
I got very
cross country. It's the cross country.
Yeah.
I get very nervous watching them at this junior level. I can't imagine how parents watch their kids. So then you go back to Tokyo and Richard Fox calling Jess Fox in the canoe, in the C1 and the K1. So Richard Fox he's represented Great Britain. His wife has represented France. They've got these 2 brilliant daughters. Not many people know that Jess's younger sister is the reserve on the Australian team.
Oh, wow.
Naomi. So then he's caught with COVID in Sydney, calling his daughter, who's gone London medalled, favourite to Rio medalled, not gold, silver, then bronze, and then they brought in through a lot of the Foxes saying, why don't we have the same amount of events as the men? You've got to bring in the C1 as well, of which she's the world champion. So they bring in the C1. She goes into the K1, dominates completely, but clips a gate late. Bronze. Like, oh my God. So then she comes down to the C1, which is a new event. And Richard Fox, they said, do you want to commentate? It's like, yeah.
Wow.
And the rationale for that was he would have been horrific if he didn't have something to do. He would have just been pacing and pacing and pacing. So he thought, I'm better being busy.
Yeah.
So he then commentates the final. She's bronze after dominating the K1 and gets to the C1, and she's completely toasted everyone. And the way they do it is you qualify and then you paddle last if you're the quickest. So she qualifying, dominates, semi-final, dominates. So then the last run, her time needs to be quicker than Dan's, and they have all the gates. So Dave Colbert is commentating in Melbourne. This is tech for you. Richard Fox is in Sydney. They both got their links. I don't know how he does it. They say Jess Fox turns up to the gate, and the whole of Australia is watching. And she's gone London, silver, bronze, Rio, bronze, Tokyo, last opportunity. Dave Colbert, as she comes to the start gate, says, "It's a fearsome-looking fox. Is she fast?" And just waiting for Richard to vomit next to her.
Yeah.
And then she goes through the first 4 gates, and Richard said, "Everything's good now, but it's the middle section of the course that's a problem." Dave Colbert, bang, 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 bang. Now the tricky 2 gates, upstream, can't afford to hit one or she'll lose the chance for an Olympic gold medal. He's talking about his daughter.
Yeah.
So then Dave Colbert keeps going, and she's on track and on time. Green lights everywhere. He goes, she's on track. 5 more gates. And Richard Fox says, "This is the critical part of the course. This is where the rapids get a little tricky. Needs to be perfect through here. Is perfect, clean, things are okay." Stays calm.
Wow.
Then Colbert calls her home, gets her over the line. Gold medal, Jess Fox goes up. Beautiful looking, fit Australian, just happens to be his daughter. Whole of Australia's crying. And he says, "Wow. Wow."
Yeah.
And Dave Colbert says, "Wow, indeed."
Yeah.
And then she's celebrating. Dave sort of give him a breather, and then she paddles over to the side where her mother is, coach, and her sister is, assistant/reserve, and he says, "She's such a beautiful paddler. She's such a beautiful person." That'd be the perfect end, I reckon.
Yeah.
You just call one of your kids to gold, who's a good kid. That'd be about perfect, I reckon.
2032.
2032. I'll be with Walkley at Echuca by 2032.
And that's the top. That's the top of the mountain. That's when you go, yeah.
Yeah, if you could commentate your child at that sort of a level, it's like, let's all go out together here. That would be perfect. As long as they're good people, it'd be shocking commentating your kid who's a little twerp. Yeah. Hopefully, and that's, I think we're surrounding them with good mentors and good people and all the right values. And if there's the chances of anyone becoming Olympian are about 400,000 to 1 at best. So that's not likely to happen. But if they're Olympic people, perfect.
Have they got some talent, the kids? Oh, well, they obviously have. They're on the podium in the.
Yeah, so I think they're young, but they've got good balance and they've got. I can get them hitting balls and they're great mimickers. My Miller is the 9-year-old. My wife skis very well, and she now keeps up with her wherever she goes on any mountain. And Soph said, you stay right there. She goes, "I just copy what you do." Some people can mimic. I could always copy if Becca was serving or if McEnroe was serving. I could always copy exactly, and she's a great mimicker. Indy's got, I think because she's the middle child, she's always tried to keep up with the eldest child, so she's got great ability to keep up. And Lex, who's 5, has an amazing ability to name every dinosaur and leave the footballs on the ground at the moment. So we'll see.
See how she goes.
Yeah.
I had one more, PK, one more.
Yeah, one more, mate.
So I was just about like starstruck. So is there any rooms that you've sort of walked into and you've been starstruck?
You do get very overwhelmed by people like Federer and Kobe, and then they disarm you because they are who they are.
Nice guys, yeah.
Yeah, McEnroe is probably the most intimidating because I always watch McEnroe and don't feel like he wants to be there. So I had to interview him for Crown once. I thought, there's no way he wants to do this. And it was a bit the same as the Kobe stuff. You do the work so that he respects you for doing the work. And he, to his credit, once he, 2 minutes in, he goes, "Yeah, right, this is going to be fun." As long as you do the work, I think they respect you. I think it's when you turn up unprepared, they go, "What am I doing this for?"
Yeah.
So, McEnroe probably the most intimidating I've ever been, but he was a bit like the other guys where he made it easy.
Awesome. Haim, just anything you're working on, any charities or anything like that you want to touch on, anything you believe in?
Yeah, well, I was listening to a podcast last night coming home from the Olympics. I drove home last night and Seinfeld was talking about this. You get asked to do a lot of charities and you sort of just say, I'll do X a year. You can only do so much because you're busy, but it's funny, like you end up doing it with the people that you love as much because there's no charity that's not worthy.
Yeah.
And you end up doing a lot of fun stuff, but then you see the people that put the energy into the charity. So the Star Ball, for example, is one that I'm really close to. The guys have raised tens of millions of dollars and just given it straight to these kids and places that need it to make lives better. You have a think about how lucky we all are here to be sitting here with clean water, smoothie. How was the smoothie? Good? Outstanding. Yeah, we give him a shout out to the local coffee shop.
Yeah, 3 daughters smoothie.
But it's like the Royal Children's Hospital saved Miller's life. I'm always full bore on that. And it's people always ask you to do things, and when you get there, you think, my God, how is this not the most important charity in the world? And 3 weeks later, you're doing another charity going, how is this the most? Yeah. So we're very lucky to be able to help them.
I think we've got to thank Haim for coming in, very busy, middle of the Olympics. Appreciate your time, mate.
No, pleasure.
And really good to hear your story, and sounds like you raised an amazing family. 3 kids there, so that was really good to hear.
Thank you.
Got
fun.
Got all the balls in the air.
I think the cool part is, from what the short time that we've sort of met you today, Ham, is the stories that you've told and the lessons that you've learnt, and then casting our mind back to when you walked in the room here. It's exactly how you came in,
made us feel
how you made us feel. So
yeah, you're picking up the lessons.
Yeah,
there's no question.
Yeah, there's no question.
You're playing us like Kobe played.
So it's not just telling us what to do. Like, you've came in and that's how you've sort of carried yourself, which is
and remembered cool. Everyone's name.
Remember, even Lino got a shout out.
Pleasure. It was
awesome.
Good fun.
Good on you, Hamish. Well, that's it, guys. Please like, share, subscribe. Whether you're watching or viewing either platform, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that sort of stuff. We love the interaction. That's it, guys. See you at the top.